When you really need care, you need 24/7 access to a care team, not a maze of paperwork from a third party. Every day, America's hospitals and health systems show up for you. Navigating healthcare can feel overwhelming, but you can count on real doctors, real nurses, real people, providing quality, around-the-clock care when you need it most. They're in your corner, in communities across America. Your neighbors, your lifelines, right beside you, holding your hand and helping find answers. That's what putting patients first actually means. Learn more at strengthenhealthcare.org. Brought to you by the Coalition to Strengthen America's Healthcare.
The Yaffee Program on WVNN.
I got from Tucker Carlson from his podcast where he says Sharia law has made Islamic societies more advanced than the West. That was a headline from Grabian.com, which usually is a great site when it comes to finding different stuff. Dale told me that actual quote's not in the audio. But on Grabian, they posted the whole video of Tucker talking. I actually don't even know who the guest is. But they start, I'm going back and I'm watching this throughout the morning. And I'm noticing something. Even if he didn't say those exact words, his whole point is that the West has lost its way, which, I tend to agree with. But then he makes, say, the Islamic world look way better than it actually is. There is just a sense, and this isn't just an issue with Tucker. What we're noticing, we have the alt-right, and some people call this the horseshoe right. And the reason why they say that is you have the radical left and the alt-right kind of merging into the same belief. And they seem to be united on the idea that America's a bad country. That is the sense I'm getting from, say, a Tucker Carlson or a Candace Owens or other people in this very fringe alt-right, that they just believe that America is completely lost and they hate the country as it is. Conservatives, we love the country. We believe there are problems that need to be fixed, especially when it comes to pop culture. But we don't go so far as to just completely hate it and say, yeah, look at the Islamic countries. At least they're this, that, and this. So I want to talk a little bit more about this because this does seem to be a little bit of a trend where you have a lot of people doom and gloom in America when it really isn't necessary. So we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a moment and a lot more stuff today on the Yaffee Program. News Talk 770 AM, 92.5 FM, WVNN. I am Alabama's voice of reason. Huntsville's conservative conscience, as you know. Coming up on the show as well, we'll get to the Alabama bullet points. A lot that's going on in the state. At the bottom of the hour, I want to go over the latest in Iran. We also have to talk about the latest. Is there a potential deal to fund Department of Homeland Security since ICE is now at airports? And what does that look like right now with ICE at airports? So we'll talk about that. In the next hour, we'll speak with an expert with the Heritage Foundation on the latest in Iran. Like I said, if you listen to a lot of the radical left and, like I said, the alt-right, you would think we're just losing. It's a complete disaster. How dare we do this? So I'll get some real perspective. Andrew Harding is a national security expert with the Heritage Foundation. He's going to join me in the next hour. Also, Austin is here producing once again. Austin, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing pretty well, Yaffee. Had a pleasant drive in this morning.
Okay, well, that's good. You're going to do what's trending later on?
Yes, I'm getting the topics down now.
Okay. You don't sound as excited. I need just a little more excitement. Just a little, you got to be. I mean, I don't know. It's okay.
I'll get a little bit more lively. I'll coffee it up a little bit here.
I need my coffee. What kind of coffee do you drink? I don't know how coffee always comes up on my show, but do you actually like coffee? Do you just go straight black coffee? Do you have?
I'm not a common drinker, but black coffee, that's a Turkish thing. That was never European. You got to have milk, cream, sugar. You got to go pleasant with it.
Wow, I like that. You gave us a history lesson about coffee.
A little bit, yeah.
I like that. That was good. All right, I want to play a cut here. And this is from last week. And it was around the time of the Oscars and everything. But I happened to find this cut of Edward Norton, who is a famous actor, as you all know. He's also pretty radical leftist. But he's on the Stephen Colbert show. And when you listen to his comments here, you would think, wow, America is turning into a dystopia. America is turning into a very, very bad place. So go ahead if you can, Austin, real quick. Play the Edward Norton cut for me.
I think that it's worth acknowledging that the anxiety of these times is particularly intense for a lot of people right now. I think that I think that we know the world is effed up in ways that are unprecedented in our lifetimes, but we also live in this unbelievable onslaught of information. You know, we see genocide being live streamed to us. We see American citizens being killed by paramilitary people in our own streets for standing in solidarity with their neighbors. We're seeing Epstein's abuses titrated into us on a daily basis, and it is such a conundrum because we know that there's a value. We know that it's good in some ways to know what is actually happening, to know what's happening in Gaza, to know what's happening in Ukraine and Sudan and Minneapolis. But at the same time, it is very difficult to know what we as an individual person can do about all of that while moving through our day.
So he goes into this, and like I said, a lot of radical left stuff. He calls ICE a paramilitary group. He says Israel's committing a genocide in Gaza. I mean, the only true thing he said is, yes, we live in times where we're just bombarded with information constantly. And he is really just proof that a lot of the information that people get is just nonsense, that people can't seem to have a real perspective on the issues and on their lives. But it is a trend that I've noticed that, especially under Trump, somehow we live in this dystopian country. America is lost. We're in very anxious times and all that. And I have to admit, I just don't understand it. The Tucker Carlsons of the world and the alt-right, the extreme right, I don't know. There are so many different names for it. And then you have the radical left. They just constantly try to bash this country. And it's just unnecessary. Now, there's a great piece here in the National Review by Charles C.W. Cook that I think makes the point well on just how crazy a lot of this is. He says, a lot of these people, he says, the United States could be great if only it were altered wholesale. Our future would be bright if only those who disagree with us were vanquished for all time. If only this politician were to win, or this one policy were to be passed into law, or this one constitutional change were to be made, then we might attain the sunlit uplands that our forefathers promised us. You know, that's a lot of what you hear in today's discourse. But he continues on. He says, I think that this inclination is bonkers. The United States has many problems at present, but this was also true in 1980, 1950, 1920, 1890, and each and every earlier juncture. Pick a date at random since 1776, and one will invariably discover all manner of cultural, social, political, and economic issues attached to it. Why? Because America is run by people, and because people are flawed, because there are no solutions in statecraft, only trade-offs, because democracy is a process, not a guarantee of perfection. It is, of course, virtuous for our free people to attempt to improve the country they inherited, but it is a grave mistake to believe that anything short of the establishment of heaven on earth represents failure. What we have in the United States right now is not a matter of if or when or after or before, but right now is a miracle. This country, as it is, this economy, as it is, this culture, as it is, this constitutional order, as it is a miracle. I tend to agree with that. That we can talk about the problems in our culture. We can talk about the worries of the future. I do it every day. Yet, I think it's important as well to step back every now and then, have some real perspective on just how good you have it and how good America is. Yes, even right now, even today, that we can kind of appreciate that we're actually, if anything, pretty spoiled. we have a serious war going on against a pretty big enemy. And for years in the past, presidents didn't want to attack Iran because they were worried about the ramifications. And yet, it's been less than a month. We have almost completely destroyed their military. And the only thing that most Americans have had to sacrifice is lower gas prices, not even shortages. That's how good we have it here. He talks about how there have been problems in our past. There will always be problems because we live in a flawed world. That's just the way it is. But I think he's right. He said there have, in the long history of this country, been a handful of years in which remaining optimistic proved a tall order, like 1862, right before the Civil War or during the pandemic. He said, we're not living in those years. Rather, we are living in a normal time, facing normal problems and contriving normal solutions. A century hence, few people will be interested in what happened in 2024, 2025. And those who do bother to think about it will presumably be confused as to why our conversations about current affairs were so eschatological, meaning so seen as the end of the world or something. So he said, despite having been given more than our ancestors could have ever imagined, many of us seem determined to interact with our peers from under a cloud, to pull them in tight so that they too end up damp, miserable, and despondent about the prospects of the place they call home. So that was Charles C.W. Cook in the National Review. And I was just thinking about that this week. I'm listening to different podcasters or whatever, influencers out there, those on the radical left or the horseshoe right. And it's all the same stuff. You would just think we live in the worst times and then America is just a terrible country. And if you actually believe that, you have no real perspective on history, no real perspective on life in this country. Even with our problems. So I'm curious what you think about it. You can weigh in. We have our Yaffee text line. As always, 866-494-9866. 866-494-WVNN, brought to you by RegenesisStemCell.com. Coming up in just a moment, we'll get to those headlines of the Alabama bullet points and much more news to get to throughout the show. Stay with me on the Yaffee program. Back in a sec.
The Yaffee program.
We're back here on the Yaffee program. News Talk 770 AM, 92.5 FM, WVNN. Glad you've joined the show today. You can also listen online at WVNN.com. Also, the WVNN app or the iHeartRadio app, the TuneIn Radio app, or any of your smart devices. So no excuse, basically, to miss the show. Got a texter weighing in real quick. Couple of texters, actually, when it came to the last segment. But one person said this. Said, today's political climate is like a really bad soap opera. Every single day comes with something new and emotionally charged, progresses into an amplified dramatic script, and ends with unresolved issues and the tease of a cliffhanger for the next episode. By the way, I think that's so true. And Trump plays on that. I mean, he was in reality TV. He knows exactly how all that works. But you talk about unresolved issues. Remember the government shutdown last year that lasted for like 2 months? Nothing was ever really resolved. Everything the Democrats are complaining about, it's still in place. So there's actually a good point there to be made. If you want to weigh in, we have our Yaffee text line there. You can weigh in throughout the show. We'll get Austin's take as well a little bit later on. But right now, let's get to those headlines once again. We have those Alabama bullet points.
Alabama bullet points. Today's headlines from around the Yellowhammer State.
Sponsored by Larry's Pistol and Pawn. Number 4 today, the Trump administration approves Alabama's final broadband proposal. The state awards $460 million across 63 projects. So the Trump administration has approved Alabama's final broadband equity access and development program proposal, allowing the state to award nearly $460 million in grants across 63 projects that will connect about 92,000 currently unserved homes and businesses statewide, achieving full broadband coverage as defined by the NTIA. Now, the projects, concentrated in rural areas as you would expect, will primarily deploy fiber, low Earth orbit satellite, and hybrid fiber coaxial technology with major recipients including Comcast, AT&T, Amazon. So we'll see if this helps people in the state. Number 3 today, some radical leftist groups like the ACLU and others are backing a University of Alabama student lawsuit over magazine suspensions. So the University of Alabama suspended 2 student magazines. One's called Alice, which is focused on women's issues, and 1956, which is focused on black students. They suspended those 2 magazines last fall after citing a non-binding federal memo from the U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi that recommended avoiding potential violations of anti-discrimination laws. So on Monday, students filed a federal lawsuit against the University of Alabama. And of course, the leftist groups are weighing in, claiming the suspensions amounted to viewpoint discrimination. Now, the suit argues that university administrators unevenly applied rules and targeted the magazines because of their editorial perspectives on race, gender, and whatever. Look, the fact is, you cannot create an only white magazine. That means you can't create these other ones. Number 2 today, Congressman Barry Moore has introduced the Defeat Sharia Law in America Act. So Barry Moore introduced the Defeat Sharia Law in America Act legislation that seeks to clarify that any discrimination based on Sharia law violates the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Now, the bill would prohibit establishments from denying goods, services, or accommodations through the implementation of Sharia law, treating such practices as unlawful segregation, while also establishing a clear rule against the unconstitutional private application of foreign Sharia legal doctrines within the United States. Now, Moore argued himself that the Constitution and American rule of law must take precedence over radical ideologies that he says reject U.S. values. He said our Constitution and the rule of law must always come first in this country. Now, there is companion legislation in the Senate that has been introduced by Tommy Tuberville, both in the Sharia Free Caucus. And number 1, we'll play some cuts of this a little bit later on, but U.S. Senator Katie Britt is praising Elon Musk's patriotism as he offers to pay TSA salaries during the shutdown. In this interview as well, she called out the radical left, saying they've basically taken over the Democrat Party. So U.S. Senator Katie Britt praised Elon Musk's patriotism after the billionaire offered to personally pay the salaries of TSA personnel during the ongoing government shutdown affecting the Department of Homeland Security. Now, Musk posted on X that he wanted to cover the pay for TSA workers who are continuing to show up without compensation to keep airports safe as the shutdown entered its second week amid stalled negotiations over continuing resolution. I think it's been longer than 2 weeks, but Britt appeared on Fox on the Sunday briefing show, said she loved the idea, emphasizing that the agents are coming to work to keep us safe. They should be getting a paycheck. And of course, as you know, the impasse stems from Democrats unwilling to negotiate anything. They basically want to defund ICE and cripple ICE's ability to deport illegal immigrants. So we'll talk more about this because there is some breaking news this morning that maybe there's a deal to be had here that Republicans are optimistic about. But Trump definitely threw a wrench in this because now he's saying they need to pass the SAVE Act if they want to do this. Democrats are never going to agree to that. So what does that mean for the future? I'm not sure. But if you want to weigh in, we have our Yaffee text line, 866-494-9866. Right now, I do want to tell you about the sponsor of the Bullet Points once again. It's Larry's Pistol and Pawn in Madison. You know, you should really step it up for your loved one right now. Maybe you have a birthday coming up for her. Maybe an anniversary coming up. Maybe your wife is pregnant and get a really nice push present, as they call it. Well, if you want to get some nice jewelry, you might say to me, yeah, but it's expensive, Yaffee. I can't afford that right now. Well, it's true. If you go to some of these really fancy jewelry stores, you probably couldn't afford it. But if you go to Larry's Pistol and Pawn in Madison, they have a huge selection, and you're going to get it for a great price, which means, yes, you can afford it. You can also put jewelry on layaway, and they have same as cash financing options for those who qualify. So it's a really cool place to shop. They have diamonds, they have other gems, they have gold, they have earrings, they have necklaces, and they even have men's jewelry. They have antique jewelry. So I'm not really sure what you're waiting for if you're wanting to shop. Go to Larry's Pistol and Pawn. I've had family members, I've had friends get stuff there. They got it for a great price. There's a reason why people go there. They can resize it for you, all of that stuff. So, I mean, everything that those really fancy jewelry stores can give you, but Larry's, they do it for a great price. Go to Larry's Pistol and Pawn in Madison. You can also go to another location in Huntsville off North Memorial Parkway, or find out more at the website. See the latest sales ad on the website, pistolandpawn.com. It's pistolandpawn.com. Let them know Yaffee was the one who sent you. We'll be back in a moment on the Yaffee program.
It's the Yaffee program on WVNN.
Welcome back to the Yaffee program. News Talk 770 AM, 92.5 FM, WVNN. This is the show where you can count on the latest news, the important guests, and the best analysis, all for your morning commute. Now, at the top of the hour, I was mentioning that Tucker Carlson apparently, I got this from Grabian, and this is literally the headline. It said, Tucker, quote, Sharia law has made Islamic societies more advanced in the West. Now, Dale was telling me he didn't say that exact quote, so I started going through a lot of the audio. And throughout this podcast of his, he is basically promoting that in a lot of ways, these Islamic cities, these Islamic countries are better than ours because they have something to believe in, which is Sharia law. And, there's a grain of truth to things that Tucker will say. So a lot of problems we have in America is the lack of spirituality, is the lack of faith. But he's definitely exaggerating the truth to say that all cities in America, big cities, are failing. I mean, just look at Huntsville, for instance. That's not one that's failing at all. And two, that all these great cities in these Islamic societies are great. I would much rather live in pretty much any American city than I would like to live in Tehran. So, by the way, Austin is here. He's producing the show today. Austin, I know you've seen kind of this trend as well, not just with Tucker, but many on the so-called alt-right that just seem to hate this country.
Yeah, I've seen it particularly. It's maybe not even country hate, but it's a strange turn to Islam of all things. I guess, I don't know if you know about Andrew Tate, Sneeko, these kinds of manosphere guys. But they're pretty big with young guys. I mean, even guys I'm friends with that, go to church, things like that. But it's just, I don't know. I don't think Islam is the turn for America. I can sympathize with saying, hey, things have gotten a little dark in America at the moment. But I just, I don't think our past or future is going to be Sharia law. I can hope. So, yeah, it just kind of puzzles me.
Well, yeah, you said it puzzles you. I mean, do you have like an explanation why maybe that's gained traction with some young people, even young conservatives?
I think it might be twofold. It might be that there is this kind of religious inclination. I mean, that's what the West, I guess, America and Europe have kind of started to lose. It's like, hey, this is a rigorous religion that has some real principles. I mean, prayer each day, kind of. They take it pretty seriously. So that's one of my instincts. That and I don't know, the relationship between men and women are pretty bad at this point. So maybe that's part of it too.
That's a great point. Both of those points are really good because something I've talked about on the show for a while is I've called it the spiritual vacuum, where basically a lot of the problems are the fact that we're filling, we kind of chased Christianity, chased God out of the public square. But when you do that, you're going to fill it with something else. When you have a vacuum, nature abhors a vacuum. And so it could be that a lot of young men, they need something. They need some kind of faith. And so if the church is failing to reach them, they're going to fill it with Islam, or they're going to fill it with whatever it is. I think a lot of people have filled it with politics, frankly, in general. But then you have the radical left, environmentalists. They filled it with Mother Earth. I mean, there are so many different examples. So I tend to agree with you. I also think you're onto something, too. There is a want of young people in this country to kind of go back to traditional family values. And because in the past, the radical feminist movement has created a lot of friction between men and women, and especially young white men seem to be under attack a lot in this country in some different ways, at least in our pop culture. So there's sort of this this need to kind of fill it with something else. So I think, does that make sense to you, Austin?
I think that tracks. Like you said, there is this, there's attack on young men, especially young families. I think Islam, at least on the surface, might appear, okay, well, men and women are kind of going into more traditional roles, but I don't know. It's not quite how you'd want it. There's still something missing there. I guess you could just return to a little bit more of a Christian American kind of picture of it. I don't know why you have to return to Islam, but yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think that's right. I think they're finding solutions in the wrong places. But, you have like the Chiefs kicker. Remember the whole controversy? He did a speech and he said, he basically said to women that if you want to be a stay-at-home mom and focus more on your family, take pride in that. Don't be attacked. And he was attacked for that. There were a lot of people upset what he said. So that's kind of an example where they're going to find that meaning somewhere. So I got a bunch of people weighing in too on our Yaffee text line, 866-494-9866, 866-494-WVNN. One person said, I'm used to libs and leftists putting America down and always blaming America. What Tucker Carlson is doing, giving homage to Sharia law, is very dangerous and downright foolish. But so is his foreign policy. So that was one person weighing in. Another person said Tucker's issues are most humans. Satan has influenced the planet like the days of Noah. I hope we're not as bad as the days of Noah because, we remember what happened. So if you have a comment on that, you can weigh in on our Yaffee text line. I do want to give people the latest here on what's going on in Iran and the war there, which, I keep mentioning to people. You would think that we're failing, but it's been one of the most brilliant military successes in the history of the planet. The only thing most Americans are even asked to sacrifice a little is lower gas prices. And we're taking down a very, very strong enemy, honestly. They're not so strong anymore. Now, the Wall Street Journal had a good piece here about exactly what's going on. Because yesterday I was like, okay, Trump is saying there might be some kind of deal. With who? Who's in charge in Iran? Who is he actually talking to? Do they know who they can talk to? Then Iran originally came out and said, no, there's no deal. But now apparently there is. According to the Wall Street Journal, it says the back-channel diplomacy behind Trump's U-turn on Iran. The president backtracked on his threat to strike Iran's power plants after a series of closed-door discussions led by Middle Eastern intermediaries. So apparently, as you heard in the Fox News update earlier, we're passing notes. We're passing notes to intermediaries, to other, Arabic countries. It says foreign ministers from Egypt, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Pakistan gathered before dawn Thursday in Riyadh for talks aimed at finding a diplomatic off-ramp to the war in Iran. But there was one big problem, according to Arab officials involved in the discussions, finding a counterpart in Iran to negotiate with. Exactly what I was saying. Who are they even talking to? But apparently, they managed to open a channel with Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which is the paramilitary group that protects the Iranian regime and is the country's most powerful security and political entity. They put forward a proposal to halt hostilities for 5 days to build confidence for a ceasefire, some of the officials said. Those discussions laid the groundwork for an abrupt reversal more than 7,000 miles away in Florida, where Trump was, of course. He spent the weekend at Mar-a-Lago, as he usually does, gave Iran an ultimatum to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, and then said he would obliterate the power plants if they don't. Well, apparently some of these talks have actually been somewhat successful, optimistic, I guess. Now, President Trump was in Memphis yesterday, and he was asked about this and was talking about this during a press conference. So go ahead if you can, Austin. Play the Trump on Iran cut that I sent you. Here was what Trump said about it yesterday.
We are now having really good discussions. They started last night, a little bit, the night before that, and I think they're very good. They want peace. They've agreed they will not have a nuclear weapon, et cetera, et cetera. Based on preliminary conversations between the United States and Iran over the past 2 days, I've directed the Department of War to temporarily postpone planned strikes against major energy and electricity targets in Iran. We were planning tomorrow on shooting down some of their power plants, and we're going to hold that up. Hopefully we won't have to do it. It could very well end up being a very good deal for everybody, as good as if we went all the way and just literally annihilated the place.
All right, there you go. So that's kind of the latest there. As I mentioned, I was a little skeptical that you could make a deal with Iran, but I was also skeptical we could ever make a deal with Hamas. And Trump got that done. All the hostages home. That's a big deal. That's an amazing victory. So if he can do that, maybe anything's possible. So you can weigh in on our Yaffee text line, 866-494-9866, 866-494-WVNN. Right now, though, I got to weigh in on my good friends at Jay's Appliance Outlet. In fact, I don't even have to say much anymore. I have had so many of you tell me about the great experience you had. So I can tell you my experience there, but so many of you listen to me. You go to Jay's Appliance Outlet. You buy a new appliance, whether it's a new refrigerator, maybe you need a washer or dryer, maybe a dishwasher. And you think, okay, Yaffee tells me to go, I go. And then they call me, they text me, they email me, and they say, Yaffee, thank you so much for telling me about this place. It was such a great experience. And the reason why is you're going to get a great price. They're family owned and operated, so you're going to get great customer service. I mean, you know them. They've been in Athens for years now. They can also service what they sell, so you can get the trust that your appliance is going to last a while. And they get new stuff in all the time. And did I mention great prices? So go to Jay's Appliance Outlet in Athens. They're off 72 in Athens. Or call them. Call them right now. Dial pound 250. Say the keywords Jay's Appliance Outlet. Pound 250. Jay's Appliance Outlet. Where service comes standard. The best prices as well. Jay's Appliance Outlet. Tell them Yaffee sent you. Got to talk about the latest with this potential deal, I guess, to end this government shutdown, partial government shutdown.
Every day, excessive delays and denials from big insurers keep patients from accessing the care they need. And when care is urgent, these delays can be disastrous. These practices cost billions in wasteful spending, driving up costs for American families. But while big insurers put up barriers, America's hospitals and health systems are in your corner, navigating endless reviews and appeals to get you the care you need when you need it most. It's time to curb these harmful practices and put the focus back on patients. Brought to you by the Coalition to Strengthen America's Healthcare.
The NFL Draft, presented by Bud Light, is coming to Pittsburgh, and it's your chance to witness the future of the game for free from April 23rd to April 25th. Feel the energy of the NFL Draft. See the Vince Lombardi Trophy and Super Bowl rings. Meet NFL players and legends. Enjoy interactive games and live music performances, and be there as the future of the NFL takes center stage. The NFL Draft starts April 23rd. Register for free entry at NFL.com/draft access today.
Hi, I'm Adam Devine, Chief Fundraiser for Children's Miracle Network. No. I said more fun! When I was a kid, a Children's Miracle Network hospital helped me get back on my feet, literally. So trust me when I say that these places aren't just hospitals. They are hope factories. Children's Miracle Network is hospitals, programs, partners, and donors like you. Join us in making big change for all kids. Visit us online at cmn.org.
So we'll get to that and much more here on the Yaffee program. Stay with us.
You're listening to Yaffee on WVNN.
We're back here on the Yaffee program. News Talk 770 AM 92.5 FM WVNN. I am Alabama's Truth Czar. As you know, this is Huntsville's Disinformation Board. Saw this from the Hill. Kind of an update on what's going on with the partial government shutdown. Are we ever going to fund DHS? We have long lines at the airport. ICE is helping out, which is a good thing, I think. But the Hill says Senate GOP says Trump's signals shift to backing DHS compromise with Democrats. So Senate Republicans believe that President Trump is willing to accept a potential deal to fund the Department of Homeland Security following a White House meeting on Monday night. Now, it would be a significant shift for Trump, who over the weekend repeatedly said he would not make a deal with Democrats unless they moved separate voting legislation known as the Save America Act. And in fact, actually, Trump said that yesterday as well in Memphis, that he really wants the SAVE Act to be a part of the deal, which would never be a part of the deal. But go ahead, real quick, Austin. Can you play Trump on the SAVE Act for me?
We're the only country that doesn't do voter ID. Every country does voter ID. Brought to my attention today that we're the only country that does mail-in voting. Mail-in voting means mail-in cheating. I call it mail-in cheating. And we got to do something about it all. And it's part of Homeland Security. And I'm suggesting strongly to the Republican Party, don't make any deal on anything. The most important thing we can have is what's called the Save America Act. And I'm requesting that the Republican senators do that immediately. You don't have to take a fast vote. Don't worry about Easter going home. In fact, make this one for Jesus, okay? Make this one for Jesus. That's what I tell them. That would be a damn good thing. The most important part of Homeland Security is voter ID and proof of citizenship.
All right. He's joking there a little bit. Make this one for Jesus. Oh, dear God. But yeah, so you can kind of hear it, though, that he wanted the SAVE Act to be a part of it or he wouldn't accept any kind of deal. So you had Senator John Kennedy out of Louisiana said he was working out a deal to have a two-step process to get things funded again. And, he was a little reluctant now because he doesn't want to do it if Trump's going to veto it. But as I mentioned, the breaking news today, this morning, is that maybe Trump will accept that deal. But go ahead if you can, Austin, play the John Kennedy cut for me.
Doesn't make much sense to do it if the president's going to veto it. The purpose of government is to bring order, not disorder. And all we're doing now is talking over each other. I think the American people are sick of listening to it. The idea that Senator Cruz and I came up with was a two-step process. First, we accept the Democrats' offer to open everything but ICE, and then step two, we open ICE ourselves with a reconciliation bill.
All right. So, it's an interesting way to approach it, that maybe you open ICE later, and ICE is already funded through the big, beautiful bill, but you open more of ICE funding later through a reconciliation bill. So maybe Trump is now considering that. It's obvious Democrats waited to the last minute to have a conversation on this. In fact, that was something Katie Britt brought up. So one of our U.S. senators in Alabama, Katie Britt, she was on Fox News on Sunday talking about the whole issue, especially with TSA and long lines at security at airports. Play a Katie Britt cut one for me, Austin.
Look, this is just completely unnecessary and unfortunate in so many ways. We have men and women who have stepped up to serve our Department of Homeland Security. We're seeing TSA right there, and they're not getting a paycheck. It's unacceptable. Want our Democratic colleagues to sit down with us and find a pathway forward, and they did for the first time since we passed the continuing resolution, Peter, on January 30th. First time they sat down with us was on Thursday.
That says a lot.
Look, I think.
I'm sorry. That says a lot to me. Because what happened here, Democrats had been a part of the appropriations process. This was all put together, then it passes the House. And then at the last minute, the Democrat senators say, no, we're going to have a shutdown because we basically want to defund ICE. We're unwilling to talk, as she mentioned. At the last second, put forward demands they knew Republicans were not going to agree to. Which is why, I'm sorry, they deserve the blame here. They really calculated, and maybe they're right. I don't know. We'll find out in the midterms, but they calculated that causing pain for the American people, that Republicans and Trump would be blamed. Even though Democrats are the ones doing this, they made a calculation. They wanted the pain because they believed it helped them. Go ahead if you can. Play a Katie Britt cut 2 for me.
Look, I think what you heard Tom say is we're going to create a plan to help out with what we're dealing with. You have TSA officers, Peter, who haven't gotten a paycheck. If you think about the 43 days in the first Democratic shutdown and now 36 plus days now, think about that. These people can't make their car payments. We had one TSA officer tell us about sleeping in his car to save on gas. They have people who have tolls they have to pay to and from work. You have a gentleman who told us about not being able to afford his wife's cancer treatment payment. But these men and women are still showing up to work, but some of them have to find another avenue. So what we're saying is we're going to figure out how to use these agents and officers in a way that is helpful so that we can take TSA officers that are coming to work and put them in the screening place where they can do their job.
Okay, and Tom Homan basically said something similar. He was at one of the airports yesterday. He's in charge of using ICE to help TSA. Play the Tom Homan cut for me, Austin.
We're not going to ignore illegal conduct in the airport, whether it's human trafficking, whether it's alien smuggling, whether it's somebody that's wanted, whether it's someone that they believe they have reasonable suspicion to talk to because they feel there's a criminal activity in front of them. Of course, anybody would need probable cause to make any arrest, but yeah, they're law enforcement officers. They're not going to ignore the law while we're there. What I see ICE agents doing is helping TSA plug the holes of security. For instance, I mentioned they can work exit lanes and relieve TSA officers from that duty and put that TSA officer back on the x-ray machine. And when you go to the airport, you show identification before you get to the x-ray machine. Maybe they can do that.
All right, there you go. So we'll have to see what happens. Maybe they can make a deal there. Coming up in the next hour here, we're going to speak with Andrew Harding. He's an expert with the Heritage Foundation. I want to ask him about the latest in Iran. Is there a potential for a deal? Who is Trump actually talking to? Can they actually make a deal? So we'll talk about that and much more. You're listening to the Yaffee program. Back in just a second.
The Yaffee program.
WVNN Athens, WVNN FM Trinity, a Cumulus Media station. News starts now.
Talking isn't stopping bombing. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. As President Trump says the U.S. keeps trying to work out a deal to end the Iran conflict, Operation Epic Fury rages the 25th day.
Israel and the United States say the ability of Iran to fire offensive weapons is severely degraded. The IDF says they have struck now some 3,000 targets in Iran. That's in addition to U.S. strikes. They've hit command centers, weapons storage, aerial defense systems. Overnight, the IDF says airstrikes hit some 50 targets, including launchers for ballistic missiles.
Fox's Mike Tobin in Tel Aviv, where there is fresh damage from more Iranian missile strikes, says oil prices rise back up today, 3 to 4% after yesterday's big drop. An American held hostage in Afghanistan since January of last year, set free today. Dennis Coyle.
The Yaffee program on WVNN.
Second hour now of the Yaffee program, already here on News Talk 770 AM, 92.5 FM, WVNN. As you know, I am Alabama's voice of reason, Huntsville's conservative conscience. And if you miss any of the show live, the podcast is up. Subscribe, tell your friends, all that good stuff. Joining me on the show right now is Andrew Harding. He is a senior associate for national security coalitions at the Heritage Foundation. Andrew, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
So, yeah, obviously the big topic today is the latest in Iran. President Trump paused strikes against their energy infrastructure. Apparently says they're ready to make a deal. My main question was, with who? Who is he actually talking to, or how is this working if they've all been killed? We don't even know if the Ayatollah that's in place is even able to talk. He was apparently severely injured, but what do you think?
You're absolutely right. I think that's an open question of who really is leading the country right now. From what we can tell, the Ayatollah continues to be out of the scene, perhaps medically induced out of the scene. And we've seen some reports over the past few days that President Trump and his team may be working with an interlocutor who's the Speaker of the Iranian parliament. This individual has some strong ties to the IRGC, has previously served as the mayor of Tehran, and has had different posts throughout the Iranian government and Iranian politics. but he's by no means at the same level of the Ayatollah or some of the other more prestigious leaders in the Iranian government. So I think the president, perhaps, as he's discussed, he wants to work with someone practical that he seems more fit. And it sounds like he and his team at least have indications that the speaker may be someone who could provide some type of guidance. So it remains to be seen if the speaker is acting on its own accord or somehow he's proven he is leading the country to some degree. But there must be enough evidence for President Trump to feel comfortable moving forward with some talks of diplomacy with this individual.
Okay, so are you optimistic then that something can happen? I mean, my general take is to be skeptical that we can really get some kind of deal with Iran, but I was also very skeptical that we could get a deal with Hamas, and Trump got that done. I mean, all the hostages back, I thought that was impossible. He got that done, so maybe it's possible here.
I think that's a very good take. I think it's true that we need to be very skeptical about Iran. They've proven that they're willing to lie. Not only they lied about their nuclear ambitions, but as we saw just a few days ago, a missile strike that launched towards our joint U.S.-UK Diego Garcia base indicated that Iran has been lying about how strong of a range that their ballistic missile program currently had. So I think it's fair to say that we should be skeptical with Iran, but exactly to your point, if anyone's going to get a deal done, I think President Trump is probably the man to do it. I think he's made very clear that he is willing to make a deal with anyone. He said this on the tarmac yesterday as well, that if the Iranians come with serious proposals, they're willing to listen to American demands. And it sounds like there must be enough moving for the president to feel comfortable that that's potentially going to go in that direction. Then I think the president is going to pursue that option if possible. I think it's in his interest to wrap this conflict up as soon as he can, but obviously only if it advances America's interest. President Trump will not accept any deal. He's going to make sure it's a deal in America's interest. So I'm cautiously optimistic, but exactly to your point, we need to be very cautious and cognizant to ensure the Iranians are actually going to be forthcoming with any potential agreement.
Now, of course, we've kind of forced them to at least agree a little bit because we've taken out most of their military. And I wanted to get your take just generally on this military operation. You look at the propaganda press, the Democrat Party, they say it's a disaster, we're losing. But then you look at the reality on the ground, to me anyway, seems like one of the most successful military campaigns in the history of the world. So what's the truth here?
You're absolutely right. I think this has been an excellent campaign, and Operation Epic Fury has been conventionally very successful. The last reports I've seen is we've taken over 100 or sunk over 100 Iranian naval vessels. And for weeks now, the United States and Israel, with an excellent partnership, have been able to demonstrate complete air superiority over Iran and are bombing at ease. So I think the media that is saying we've lost or claiming that this war is not going well, I just don't think that's true. Of course, that doesn't mean war is easy. We're certainly feeling pressure points, especially on oil prices. And, of course, we have lost some service members that have made the ultimate sacrifice to our country. But the operation is making America safer. It is preventing Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, expanding its ballistic missile system, and its ability to have a threatening military power in the region with its Navy or Air Force, but also supporting its terrorist proxies. So this operation is going well, and exactly to your point, we're gaining leverage with any type of end to this conflict by keeping the military foot on the gas.
Speaking with Andrew Harding, he is with the Heritage Foundation. He's a national security expert. So what do you think about our European allies? Are they going to be forced to kind of help us when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz? They sort of balked at it initially, but then it seems like they're coming on board. I mean, are we going to be able to get this strait open pretty soon? Are we dependent on a deal to do it, or can we accomplish it militarily?
Well, I'm skeptical of the Europeans taking any substantive role in this operation. We have seen a little bit of progress in which there's been a floating statement around of countries, some Gulf, European, and even Asian countries coming together, signing on that they want to see the strait open, that they want to contribute. But to no surprise, there's no actual commitments. There's just a statement. That has been the trend, how the United States has had to take on the leading role here of global security, which it would have been ideal if the president has made clear to see European allies step up to the plate sooner rather than later. When it comes to opening the strait, I think it does come down to ensuring that the United States can successfully control the strait with the military, but there's two other factors here. First, we need to prevent the IRGC from having the ability to hold the strait at risk. What that means is they can still have missile launchers or boats with mines, and I'm confident that we have the ability to take that out, but it does take time because the IRGC has to show these abilities. They have to attempt to conduct these attacks in order for the U.S. to smoke them out. But secondly, then it comes down to the private sector, in which these multi-billion-dollar vessels are sitting around the strait and understandably don't want to risk their vessels getting stuck in a conflict. But at some point, they're going to have to increase the amount of movement throughout the strait and take on that risk. Of course, the U.S. military removing that risk as much as possible in order for the strait to be back online, back to normal.
Well, it's kind of interesting, too, because you're right. It takes time, and we keep forgetting it's been under a month, right, of this conflict. I mean,
right.
Look at some of the headlines, you would think we're in a forever war, but it's been under a month. It seems to me we probably could get that accomplished in some time.
I think you're right, and I think we're on a good trajectory. We know over the weekend the president issued a 48-hour ultimatum, and then right around the end of that 48 hours is when he announced that Iran had agreed, or not agreed rather, but indicated that there was some type of diplomatic conversation, enough to the point where the president felt comfortable saying, well, I won't go after your energy infrastructure. Now, of course, what's really brilliant there is the president didn't actually give anything up. If anything, he's confirmed that he can continue to go after military and dual-use targets, which, again, goes to giving the U.S. more leverage, while Iran didn't really gain anything from this. If anything, they know the United States can hit them if they so feel like it, and the president can draw some lines. So I do think we're on a good trajectory, whether it's diplomatically. We'll see if there's a possibility. Again, being cautiously optimistic, we can get somewhere. But exactly to your point on how successful this operation has been militarily, I think we're in a good spot to where we're degrading over time, but degrading Iran's ability to hold the strait at risk.
Andrew Harding is with the Heritage Foundation, joining me on the show right now. I did want to shift gears a little bit because, I mean, Trump kind of did recently as well, talking about Cuba. So because of what happened in Venezuela, Cuba's not getting Venezuelan oil. Cuba's had major power outages. Seems like the regime there is on the verge of collapse. The economy's on the verge of collapse. What do you think happens next there?
Well, I want to see what's going to happen with the current leadership, because just couple of weeks ago, the Cuban leader gave a public address and indicated that they've had negotiations or conversations with the United States on a path forward. What that tells me, and Secretary Rubio has made clear, and the president has made it clear that they've had their eye on Cuba for some type of meaningful long-term change to the U.S.-Cuba relationship. So I will be curious to see if, as the weeks go on, as these electrical outages continue, protests increase, the cost of living goes up, and general unrest continues to exist. I'm curious to see what the regime may be willing to concede on or offer to the United States in order to see some economic openings, to see the Cuban people can reclaim their own destiny, see what access they have to democratic institutions, to freedoms that we certainly would love to see the Cuban people have, and that this regime has prevented them from having. So I do think, and exactly as you mentioned, the Venezuela operation has been key to that. Venezuela propped up this Cuban regime, and with that regime change in Venezuela, or to at least a degree of oil not being as accessible, we do have an opportunity and leverage to see a better U.S.-Cuba relationship in the future.
Yeah, and, Rubio can run it, right? Marco Rubio, Secretary of State. He's got nothing else to do. You can just send him down there and run that, too. I don't know. Andrew Harding, he is an expert with the Heritage Foundation. Any further thoughts on anything maybe we missed that you wanted to share?
Well, I think I'll emphasize that Operation Epic Fury has been successful in keeping America safe in the sense of preventing Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, destroying its ballistic missile systems, and preventing it to project power. That means this operation has been America first. It has ensured that America is safer and that the region can be more peaceful, and it also can reduce our need to continue to have these different military operations throughout the region. So I'm confident in what we're seeing, and I'm optimistic that we can see an end to the conflict within the next few weeks.
There you go. There you have it. Andrew Harding with the Heritage Foundation, National Security Foreign Policy expert. Really appreciate you coming on the show. As always, my friend, we'll talk to you again in the future.
Thanks. You got it. Thanks for having me.
All right, there you go. If you want to react to that, we have our Yaffee text line, as you know, 866-494-9866, 866-494-WVNN. The text line brought to you by Regenesis Stem Cell Center. Go to regenesisstemcell.com to find out more how they can help relieve pain. If you deal with, say, knee pain, back pain like I did, neck pain, elbow pain, any type of joint pain, arthritis, joint deterioration. Stem cell therapy, it's a proven alternative to orthopedic surgery. It can speed healing and regeneration in your body without the need for anesthesia, lengthy downtime, or even a surgical wound. Sounds pretty great. I mean, I was worried with my back problems. I would need some kind of major back surgery, and that's extremely risky. It really is. So I went to Regenesis Stem Cell Center. Dr. Charles Lee is great. They helped me out. They changed my life using my own body's adult stem cells. Don't let injuries or pain slow you down any longer. Call them today, 256-715-8193, or go to regenesisstemcell.com. Make an appointment right now. Regenesis Stem Cell Center. When you contact them, let them know Yaffee sent you. We'll be back in a moment on the Yaffee program.
It's the Yaffee program.
Hi, I'm Adam Devine, Chief Fundraiser for Children's Miracle Network. No. I said more fun! When I was a kid, a Children's Miracle Network hospital helped me get back on my feet, literally. So trust me when I say that these places aren't just hospitals. They are hope factories. Children's Miracle Network is hospitals, programs, partners, and donors like you. Join us in making big change for all kids. Visit us online at cmn.org.
On WVNN.
We're back here on the Yaffee program. Always here, News Talk 770 AM 92.5 FM WVNN. As you know, it's a revolution in common sense. Making radio great again, making Alabama radio great again. So one of the big stories here in Alabama right now is what happened with Ernie Yarbrough. Now, he's been in the legislature just a couple of years. He's been great since he's been in there. I mean, been really good. And this is really unfortunate. Obviously, it's unfortunate because his son got injured. That's the biggest thing. But this is going to hurt his political career, and it's going to hurt those who really support the Second Amendment in the legislature. I mean, it's just the reality. Now, we have to find out more details. I'll read you some of the story here from YellowHammerNews.com. I know our local news partners have been updating it throughout the morning as well. It says Lawrence County Sheriff's deputies responded Saturday evening to the home of State Representative Ernie Yarbrough after his 6-year-old son accidentally shot his 13-year-old brother in the back of the shoulder. Now, Yarbrough's wife called 911 to report the incident. The family transported the injured child to the emergency room before deputies arrived and later took him to Children's Hospital in Birmingham. Now, Lawrence County Sheriff's Office Chief Deputy Brian Covington talked about this to the Decatur Daily. Covington said the 6-year-old had retrieved an AR-style rifle and accidentally fired it, striking his 13-year-old brother in the back of the shoulder. Now, the good news is the 13-year-old suffered non-life-threatening injuries and is reportedly back home recovering. So the case is under investigation. Now, I keep mentioning that we need more details because other than the fact that the 6-year-old accidentally secured the firearm, we don't know where the firearm was. Was it locked up in a case? Was it just laying under the bed or something? We don't know. Because let's say it was locked up in a case or something, and maybe the 13-year-old was the one who took it out of the case, handed it to the 6-year-old, whatever it might be. That kind of changes things. If it's just under the bed and you just have a bunch of guns laying around, that if you have a 6-year-old, I'm sorry, it's completely irresponsible. As someone who has kids myself, trust me, I understand how kids, it is amazing what kids can get into. I've joked about how my daughter Evie is like drawn on the walls. She'll get like a step stool and grab things, and it can be pretty dangerous. So I'm not saying it's easy to keep up with your kids, but when we're dealing with firearms, you have to find a way. You have to find a way to lock it up. Now, I'm not a legal expert either, so I don't, legally speaking, can they file charges? I'm guessing the details matter there as well. But the real problem is every time you talk with, say, Democrats who really push for gun control, they will always throw stats at you about how kids are accidentally hurt or killed by guns in the home. And they use that stat to really push the need for gun control. And a lot of times the response from, say, a Yarborough or those who support the Second Amendment, a lot of times the response is, well, we're talking about responsible gun owners. The vast majority of gun owners are responsible. They can lock it up. They teach kids about it so this kind of stuff doesn't happen. They protect their kids in that regard. And they'll say it's an insult to say that gun owners are irresponsible. Well, I'm sorry, but it's going to be much more difficult for Ernie Yarborough to make that argument. And he's going to have to. He's going to be in the legislature. He has pushed for Second Amendment laws in Alabama. It's going to be more difficult for him to push those laws because of what happened here. As I mentioned, we need some of the details, but that's just the kind of the reality. So it's unfortunate in a number of ways. It really is, because he's been a pretty good lawmaker. I mean, he's been the main sponsor of the Wake and Riley Act, the Alabama version, which is finally making some progress. Apparently, there's another incident in the country where, once again, an illegal immigrant killed someone. We can talk about that story later on. But he's been a pretty good lawmaker. Now, according to this, the case is under investigation and has been forwarded to the Lawrence County District Attorney's Office. It says the first-term lawmaker has not publicly commented on the shooting. And my friends at Yellowhammer News have reached out, but they have not heard back. Eventually, he is going to have to comment on this. And we had some good text messages earlier. I know Dale Jackson during his show was talking about this a lot. I was talking about it with him. My general take is there is a little bit of wait and see because we don't have all the details. But this looks very, very bad when your 6-year-old is able to get an AR-style rifle and shoot his brother with it. What led up to that? And usually this would just be kind of a general news story, but the fact he's a lawmaker who really promotes Second Amendment rights in the legislature and is very, very conservative, been on the show a couple times and been pretty good on the show a couple of times, that makes this even a little bit more concerning. So we can get your take on it. I'd like to see what you think. Should he be held responsible? Does this undermine our Second Amendment argument? What's going to happen in the legislature? You can tell me. We have our Yaffee text line is always 866-494-9866. 866-494-WVNN. The text line is brought to you by RegenesisStemCell.com. So coming up in the show as well, we are going to get to What's Trending with Austin. Austin's been producing. We'll do the Yaffee program rewind as well. We've covered a lot on the show. And, anything that you guys want to weigh in on, we can do. So you are listening to the Yaffee program. We'll be back here in just a sec. Stay with us.
You're listening to Yaffee on WVNN. You're listening to Huntsville's Disinformation Board. Alabama's Truth Czar is back on WVNN.
We are back here on the Yaffee program. News Talk 770 AM, 92.5 FM WVNN. Don't forget to like the Yaffee Facebook page. And I am noticing, it only took 5 years, but I am noticing that more and more people on the text line are spelling my name right. They're getting it right. They're progress. I like the progress. But I want you to like the Yaffee Facebook page. Follow me on X at Yaffee or Instagram at Yaffee Live. So Austin is producing today. Let's do it once again. We have What's Trending with Austin.
Keeping you up to date with all that's trending in your world.
Oh, they have the internet on computers now.
You guys know how to post videos to Facebook?
It's What's Trending.
Sponsored by Coleman Furniture Market. That's because, well, they always have the latest trending in furniture. So drive to the heart of Coleman, Alabama. It's worth the drive, trust me. And you'll see the best furniture store in the universe. That's because their selection is huge. I always tell you a story about how I went with my brother. He lived in Nashville at the time, and he wanted to buy a new bedroom set. And he's shopping around different stores, and he found something he liked. And they would say, oh, well, we can get that to you in about 6 months. And I'm thinking the whole time, like, Andy, that's my brother's name. You need to drive down to Coleman and just get something there, because if it's in their showroom, it's available immediately. Now, he lives outside the state, so it wouldn't work out for him, but they can deliver to anywhere in the state of Alabama. There's a reason why. Like I say, they are the best furniture store anywhere. You can find out more at ColemanFurnitureMarket.com, and you can see some of the latest stuff they get in on their Facebook page and their Instagram page. Coleman Furniture Market. They always have what's trending in furniture. Let them know Yaffee sent you. All right, Austin, what is number 5 today?
Number 5 today is a bit of a silly one, but it went viral. Gavin Newsom decided to compare himself to Patrick Bateman on X.com from American Psycho.
Yeah, what? Is it the hair? The slick
it's
hair,
just
the
the
slick
whole
look?
the vibe. People have done this in memes before and stuff like that, but then it's kind of like when someone compliments you and you're saying, well, people are saying, so he said, well, people are saying that, I kind of look like Patrick Bateman, he's like a good-looking kind of sociopath, I guess, in the film.
That's
so
an
that's
interesting
why.
comparison.
Yeah, it's not, watching the movie, it's not the most flattering, so it's, it's a little funny.
Well, it's kind of funny because, I guess what he's doing, he's trying to own it. So if you can't beat them, join them kind of thing. And sometimes when you do that, it takes away some of the criticism. But I don't know. It's kind of on the nose. So maybe I don't know how much that helps him. It's just saying he's American Psycho.
Trying to appeal to the youth, I guess. It became a meme, so maybe he's trying to lean into it. He's not leaning into it as a joke, though. He's kind of taking it seriously, so it's like, well.
Oh, it's vote for me, American Psycho. I don't know if that.
Yeah, essentially.
I don't know if that works. Man, I see a lot of people say that he's still the front runner for the Democrats next time. I don't know. I think he's overrated. I remember everyone told me that Kamala Harris, this was in 2016. Oh, she's going to be great. Or 2020, she's going to be great. And I'm like, she's terrible. She's not a good campaigner. I almost think that about Gavin Newsom, that he's overrated. But anyway, what's number 4?
Number 4 is going to be, this has happened a few times, but this one got pretty trending. A Kentucky family rejects a $26 million farm buyout from a data center, sort of AI data center, trying to turn their farm into one of those. And it's about 10 times the going rate on the land. So this would have been a pretty big, buyout for them, but they stood their ground, and they're being received pretty well online, in public opinion at least.
Yeah, the data center controversy is interesting, and I don't know what to make of it yet, because it kind of reminds me of all the complaints about fracking. You remember when fracking first really started? And everyone was like, oh, it's ruining the water. It's causing earthquakes. But really, fracking was really good. I almost sense that here, that a lot of the complaints are just overblown. It's like, oh, it creates a noise. It's stealing all the water. And I'm like, I don't know. But if they want to keep their farm, that's fine, too. We need farms. We do need food.
That was the point that they made. She said, well, I prefer that than AI videos. I want to keep feeding people milk. I think it was a cattle farm or something like that. So that was kind of the lady's take on it. But
God, yeah, I understand that.
All right,
what's number?
I kind of get the I guess the pushback a little bit there with there's fracking. That's sort of for something valuable, but if AI, I don't know. Maybe people are getting tired of what it's being used for. I guess I don't know.
Well, and there's also talk about an AI bubble that. A lot of the building and stuff, there's so much money going into it in a lot of the building, and eventually a bubble's going to burst. And then what do you have? A bunch of empty data centers across the land? That doesn't sound good. Yeah, so I don't know. What's number 3?
Number 3 is 60 Minutes Now. They did a segment on a labor shortage in a lot of the skilled blue-collar environments, welders, pipe fitters, things like that. This went viral mostly because people were kind of giving him a bit of pushback online, saying, well, raise the salary of those people if they're doing dangerous work. Welding in a pipe fitting yard, things like that, or shipyards, dangerous environments, oil refineries. It's not exactly safe. You could get about the same salary doing gutters, plumbing, etc. So that's getting a bit of pushback. But anyway, they did a report on that.
Oh, that's interesting because. I was going to say, you can still make decent money doing some of these blue collar jobs. There's been a lot of talk about maybe for a lot of people it's better to do a job like that than say go to college and get a white collar job. Especially, we're talking about AI. AI is going to take a lot of those white collar jobs, so maybe blue collar jobs would be better.
It's certainly not going to fix plumbing. It's not going to fix your toilet. So yeah, I can see the mentality.
But this was more about what, really risky blue collar jobs is what you're saying.
Yes, underwater welding, those kinds of things. I guess they haven't seen much of it. I ended up kind of looking into it, and I think if you were, 3 to 5 years in was the job expectation, you're still making 55, 60,000. Risking your life, kind of becomes, didn't quite adapt with the market, I guess.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I don't know if it was on the History Channel, but it was something about like underwater welding and welding in general. And I had no idea like how much goes into that. There's no clue. And you're right. It's pretty risky.
Yeah. I was the same. I didn't know how much there was in it, but just even a brief look into it, you're like, oh, this is a lot more than some of the other
I think they could recruit people. I think if they tried, they could recruit people. But you're right. They're probably going to have to raise wages if they want more people. And the market will have to work that out. What's number 2?
Number 2, sort of on the subject of oil refineries and shipfitting yards, the Valero refinery in Port Arthur, Texas, caught fire. A massive explosion. It's a oil refinery. I think it's estimated about 300,000 barrels of oil each day are refined there. So people are still scratching their heads at what it was. Was it some drone attack? The war's going on? Was it just, a mistake? Who knows? But that's been blown up.
Yeah,
recently.
and this was in Texas, right?
Yes, yeah, in Texas.
It's kind of interesting. When I first heard about it, I figured it was just an accident or something. But you're right. We have to worry about that with the Iran war.
Yeah, exactly. I think that was what people were kind of pointing out, was that now you're kind of scratching your heads. This wouldn't be complicated with a drone, from what a lot of people in the kind of comments I was reading were saying that, hey,
that's terrifying.
Yeah, exactly.
Way to scare us all in what's trending today, because that's a good point. I mean, that was something they were worried about. I guess we'll find out. My guess, it probably was an accident of some kind, because that kind of happens.
Yeah, I'm feeling like people would be a lot quicker on the draw to figure out if it actually was a problem. I think people would be pretty immediately escalating. So,
yeah, exactly. Oh man! All right, what's number 1?
Number 1 is Project Hail Mary. A movie released to theaters, made $80 million on March 20th. It's opening day. 95 Rotten Tomatoes. This movie's just making a lot of buzz. People are actually going to the theater in a post-COVID world. Surprising. So yeah, that's been positive to see. Just an actual movie that people like again. Kind of crazy.
So have you seen it yet?
I have not. I've been talking to my wife and my dad about going to see it with both of them.
I really want to see it.
Yeah, I really do. I think it has a somewhat pro kind of, some people have kind of quoted this one line. It's kind of a Christian line about belief in God. So I don't know, just overall a kind of feel-good movie from what people said, which is, a bit of a switch from a lot of the movies we get now. So,
well, and yeah, we keep hearing the talk of like movie theaters are dying. And I've said for a while, movie theaters can still do well. You just got to make good movies. And the Hollywood studios were kind of forgetting how to do that.
Yeah, I don't think you're alone. Ryan Gosling had a quote where he says, it's not your job to keep the movie theaters open. It's not a charity case. It's our job to make things you actually want to come watch. So, yeah, I think
is a great
you're
quote.
In good company. Yeah, exactly. I was surprised to hear it, but he is right.
Oh, man. Ryan Gosling's going to make me like him. I've said for years that I thought Ryan Gosling was the most overrated actor in Hollywood, but now he's going to make me like him. Maybe he has changed my mind.
No way. I can't believe you think he's so popular with young guys. They drive Blade Runner?
Yeah, but I guess the thing is, he's in good movies, but it's like his acting is just usually so flat and stale. In like all those movies you mentioned. But more of his recent stuff, it's been like he's able to have a little bit of range. So maybe I'm...
Yeah, you did get me there. I mentioned 2 movies where he plays the most flat, dead character possible, so yeah.
Yeah, like he's just... Like so many movies, that was his thing. And I'm like, gosh, he's so overrated. But some of the newer stuff, he's been able to like kind of branch out a little bit. But yeah, I think he's right. I mean, the things I've heard about this movie that make it good is, one, it's not an established franchise. Like it's an actual new story. It's based on a book, but it's not like a sequel or established thing. And two, it's kind of what you said. It's a feel-good movie. So people can go and it has a good message that we can all relate to and enjoy. And three, and this is something Christopher Nolan's been doing for years, and I guess everyone else is catching up, more practical effects instead of all CGI stuff, that people want real practical effects. And you can kind of tell, especially with AI and everything. We see all of this AI slop. So when we go to a movie and we want something different, we want to see something that looks real, that doesn't look fake. So those are the things I've seen. But I want to see it too. The problem is I have a new baby. When am I going to how do I justify going to see this movie with my wife and new baby and then our 2-year-old at home while I do that? How do I justify that, Austin?
That would not be popular, I think, bringing a 2-year-old and a newborn to the theater.
No. Well, they would stay home. But then I would have to leave them
showing
at home. So, I mean, do I do that? Do I just tell her it's for work?
We've talked about it on the air, so that could be, it's a tax write-off. It's a work thing.
Yeah, it's like, well, honey, I have to go see it for work. I just, I know you're at home, you're busy right now, but that, I don't know. This is going to be, I really want to see it, though. It's going to be tough. All right, Austin, I appreciate it. Good job today. We'll be back with the Yaffee program rewind in just a moment here on WVNN.
The Yaffee program.
Hey, Adam Devine here. Looking for a way to make a big change for all kids in your community? Just look for the balloon. When you see the Children's Miracle Network balloon at your local store, restaurant, or gas station, your donation provides crucial funds for local children's hospitals. Hospitals that provide life-changing care for all kids. Children's Miracle Network. Hospitals, partners, programs, and donors like you. Learn more at cmn.org.
Oh boy, so I just got a text from my wife, not on the movie thing, but maybe I will on that. But as everyone knows, we just, our baby boy was born last week, just a little over a week old. And I keep telling everyone he is gigantic. I mean, this baby, and it's not an exaggeration, he's gigantic. He was born at 9 pounds, 2 ounces. And usually you lose a bunch of weight if you're a baby, and then you gain some of it back. Well, she saw the doctor today, and now he's 9 pounds, 10 ounces. He's just an eating, growing machine. So if anyone out there is recruiting for the NFL right now, or maybe NIL in college, just let me know. He'll be ready. He'll be ready to join the lineup soon, I guess. I don't know. But there you go. Just so everyone knows, Steffi and Isaiah, my son's name is Isaiah, are doing very well. They're doing good, and it's been a blessing. I mean, really a blessing from God. Everything that's happened, it's been great. All right, let's end the show like we usually do. We have the Yaffee program rewind. All right, so I started the show today, and I'm going to play the cut here again. But I played this cut from Edward Norton, who's an actor. And I talked about how I noticed that there are the Tucker Carlsons in the world, with the horseshoe right and the radical left seem to agree that they just seem to hate America now. That America has just become this dystopia hellscape or something. And how untrue that is. But go ahead, just if you missed it earlier, I played it at the beginning of the show. And by the way, this is the time of the show where I remind you, if you missed any of it, the podcast is up anywhere podcasts are available. Play the Edward Norton cut for me again, Austin.
I think that it's worth acknowledging that the anxiety of these times is particularly intense for a lot of people right now. I think that I think that we know the world is effed up in ways that are unprecedented in our lifetimes. But we also live in this unbelievable onslaught of information. You know, we see genocide being live streamed to us. We see American citizens being killed by paramilitary people in our own streets for standing in solidarity with their neighbors. We're seeing Epstein's abuses titrated into us on a daily basis. And it is such a conundrum because we know that there's a value. We know that it's good in some ways to know what is actually happening, to know what's happening in Gaza, to know what's happening in Ukraine and Sudan and Minneapolis. But at the same time, it is very difficult to know what we as an individual person can do about all of that while moving through our day.
So you listen to those like him, not only is he a radical leftist nut job in what he says, but he also talks about, I don't know, he thinks it's just a bad country. And I read this piece, part of it, from Charles C.W. Cook in the National Review, kind of responding to this idea that things are so bad. He said, yeah, the United States has many problems at present, but we've always had some problems because we're human beings. He said America is run by people and because people are flawed, because there are no solutions in statecraft, only trade-offs, because democracy is a process, not a guarantee of perfection. It is, of course, virtuous for a free people to attempt to improve the country they inherited, but it is a grave mistake to believe that anything short of the establishment of heaven on earth represents failure. We have in the United States right now, it's not a matter of if or when or after or before, but right now, what we have now is a miracle. This country as it is, this economy as it is, this culture as it is, this constitutional order as it is still a miracle. So it's important to have perspective on that. So I expounded on that at the beginning of the show. If you missed it, the podcast is up. Then I did the Alabama bullet points, one of the top stories I had there. A lot going on in the state, but Congressman Barry Moore has introduced the Defeat Sharia Law in America Act. And Barry Moore will join me on the show tomorrow, so I'll ask him more about what's in this bill. But the details are up on my social media as well. So you want to like the Yaffee Facebook page, follow me on X at Yaffee or Instagram at Yaffee Live. Then we talked about the latest in Iran and Trump, and he seems optimistic that maybe a deal can be had with whoever is in charge of Iran. Go ahead. Trump talked about this yesterday as well. Austin, go ahead and play Trump in Iran for me.
We are now having really good discussions. They started last night, a little bit, the night before that, and I think they're very good. They want peace. They've agreed they will not have a nuclear weapon, et cetera, et cetera. Based on preliminary conversations between the United States and Iran over the past 2 days, I've directed the Department of War to temporarily postpone planned strikes against major energy and electricity targets in Iran. We were planning tomorrow on shooting down some of their power plants, and we're going to hold that up. Hopefully we won't have to do it. It could very well end up being a very good deal for everybody, as good as if we went all the way and just literally annihilated the place.
All right, so there you go. Kind of an update on that. We talked about that earlier on in the show. The podcast of that segment is up. We also talked about a potential deal. Senate Republicans seem more optimistic that Trump will agree to a deal to at least fund TSA, parts of the Department of Homeland Security, then they'll fund the rest of ICE through reconciliation. And I know U.S. Senator Katie Britt had talked about that. Go ahead real quick, Austin. Play Katie Britt cut 1 for me if you can.
Look, this is just completely unnecessary and unfortunate in so many ways. We have men and women who have stepped up to serve our Department of Homeland Security. We're seeing TSA right there, and they're not getting a paycheck. It's unacceptable. Want our Democratic colleagues to sit down with us and find a pathway forward, and they did for the first time since we passed the continuing resolution, Peter, on January 30th. First time they sat down with us was on Thursday.
So it shows just, they didn't want to make a deal up until now because they wanted the pain, because they believe that Americans will blame Trump for the pain. So we talked about that earlier on the show. The podcast of that segment's up. Will be up later on. We also had Andrew Harding on with the Heritage Foundation talking about the latest in Iran. So that interview podcast will be up. We talked about Ernie Yarbrough. Unfortunately, his 6-year-old son accidentally shot his 13-year-old son. They're all okay, but it's unfortunate. We had What's Trending earlier. So any of the show, the podcast is up. Appreciate you listening to the show. Thanks to Austin for producing, and I'll be back tomorrow at the same time. See you then.
It's the Yaffee Program on WVNN.